Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا نافع عن ابن عمر أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا يتحرى أحدكم فيصلي عند طلوع الشمس ولا عند غروبها. So Malik informed us from Nafi' ibn Umar that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, no one should intend or try. Right? This is the key word for Imam Shafi'i. No one should intend to pray at the rising of the sun nor at its setting. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا زيد بن أسلم عن عطاء بن يسار عن عبد الله ibn الصنابحي, and there's khilaf here, is he a Sahabi or not, and who is he exactly, right? So Al-Bulqini, I believe Siraj ad-Din Al-Bulqini, he has a whole essay on him. Like, there's so many different Sunabihi, right? So is this um is this Sunabihi, is he a Sahabi or not, right? So Tirmidhi, I believe, mentions of him. He says رحل النبي وقبض النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وهو في الطريق وقد روى عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أحاديث. Right, so Imam Tirmidhi, they believe this hadith, or hadith like this. Hadith, no, it's not. It's hadith about the merit of wudu. It comes at the beginning of Tirmidhi. Mentions that Sunabihi, this Sunabihi, he was on the way to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, he's on the way to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had passed away while he was on the way. So he arrived maybe a few days afterwards. Okay. So what's interesting then is how significant is that? So technically speaking, you did not see the Prophet ﷺ or hear the Prophet ﷺ. So therefore, you're not you're mukhadram, right? You're somebody mukhadram means somebody who's in two stages. So he's the time of the Sahaba, time of the Tabi'een, and he's in the middle. Okay. But how significant is that in the Sihha? Like, what is the likelihood that he turns up and instead of narrating from all the Sahaba are there, he narrates from a Tabi'i. And on top of that, Tabi'i is weak. Like, what is that likelihood? So here it's kind of like, it's kind of academic, like it's not really significant. Yeah, it's mursal, but I mean, but it's not very significant. Okay. And the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam قال إن الشمس تطلع ومعها قرن الشيطان فإذا ارتفعت زائلها ثم إذا استوت قارنها ثم إذا زالت فارقها ثم إذا دنت للغروب قارنها فإذا غربت فارقها قال ونهى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الصلاة في تلك الساعات. So Zayd ibn Aslam, he informed us from Ata ibn Yasar, from Abdullah ibn Sab al-Sunabi, that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, when the sun rises, the horn of the shaitan is with it. Then when has risen, the horn separates from it. Then later, when it is at the zenith, it is accompanied by it. But when it moves away from the zenith, it is separated from it. Then later, when it approaches setting, it is accompanied by it. And when it sets, it separates from it. He said, the Messenger of Allah forbade salah at those times. So the first hadith mentions A, a taharri, that you seek it. B, mentions 2 times. The second hadith does not mention taharri. He says you can't pray at that time. Right? Doesn't use the word trying. And does not mention, and it mentions the 3 times. Okay. Malik informed us from Zayd ibn Aslam. Okay. And he says, أخبرنا مالك أخبرني عبد الله بن دينار قال كان عبد الله بن عمر يقول كان عمر بن الخطاب يقول لا تحروا بصلاتكم طلوع الشمس. Notice the same words. Don't try. بصلاتكم طلوع الشمس ولا غروبها فإن الشيطان يطلع قرناه من طلوعها ويغربان عند غروبها وكان يضرب الناس عن تلك الصلاة. Right, and meaning because of. And can sometimes mean because. So Malik informed us Abdullah ibn Dinar, one of the key narrators, right, besides Salim and Nafi' from Abdullah ibn Umar. used to say, Umar ibn Khattab used to say, do not intentionally pray. Don't try and pray when the sun is rising nor is it setting. Notice two times again. Because Shaitan's two horns rise with its rising and set with its setting. And he used to strike people to prevent them from doing that prayer. He used to hit them for it. قال محمد بهذا كله نأخذ يوم الجمعة وغيرها عندنا في ذلك سواء. Right? وهو قول أبي حنيفة رحمه الله. So notice, it's very important to understand what people refer to. So Imam Muhammad, he says we adhere to all of this, and he says the day of Jummah and other days are the same in this respect. So why are you talking about Jummah? Where does it even mention Jummah? Like, why are you referring to that? Imam Malik will do the same thing. Imam Malik puts a title. The title is indicative of a debate, right? A problem or a debate. Somebody is saying something and I'm saying the opposite. So there's a reference to the other thing, a reference to a hadith, a reference to a fatwa, a reference to something. So here, right, we see, for example, this is this is an interesting discussion. We'll come back to the issue before, but interesting discussion. The Shafis, okay, how do we work? Sahih hadith, Quran, qiyas, consensus. We have a weak hadith, not a sahih hadith, that you can pray on Jummah, you can pray during the Zawal. We have a weak hadith for that. So Shafi is like, why do you even say that? Like, you have a weak hadith. So how could a weak hadith qualify a sahih hadith? Like, that doesn't really make sense. Like, well, how is that even working? So then you start to dig and you dig and you dig and you realize there's more and more qara and there's more and more evidence. Like, isn't it interesting that Imam Muhammad, right, the teacher of Imam Shafi says, oh yeah, Yawm al-Jum'ah is the same. Or why? Well, because of weak hadith. Or are you saying many fatwa of many people are saying you can do that on Jummah, it's fine? So then the Shafis are not using the weak hadith. The Shafis are using the weak hadith conjoined with the fatwa of a number of people. Okay? We then go and ask the Malikis, can I pray at this time? They say, yeah, it's fine. Why did the Maliki say that? Yeah, because you can pray during Zawal anyway for the Maliki. So they have the two times, sun rising, sun setting. So Zawal is not an issue for them. Okay? So now I have a weak hadith, and that's the Shafi school that I can pray on Friday during Zawal. And then I also have the Medinans doing it, which is interesting. And then I got to ask the Hanbalis, what's your fatwa on that? The Hanbalis say, yeah, you can do that. Why? Because on Jum'ah starts before Zawal anyway. Okay? Jum'ah starts before Zawal anyway. You can pray Jum'ah from when after the sun has risen well high anyway. So from Duha time. Right? So suddenly, what seems like a really kind of lame argument, that seems very odd. Like, your argument is there's Sahih Hadith saying don't pray at Zawal, and then a weak Hadith saying you can on Fridays. Why would you do that? And then you dig and you dig and you dig and you find, well, there's this evidence, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this. And a quote like this, obviously that means that people are saying it. He's rebutting something that exists. So there's fatwa that are out there from the Salaf saying, yeah, Friday is okay. You find the Medinans are doing it anyway. Imam Ahmad does it anyway. Like, oh, interesting. So it's very important to think to look at those things. So many times it's like that. When you look at an argument, the argument seems fairly kind of flimsy. How is that really an argument? But that's not the whole argument. That's not the whole argument. That's part of the argument. And they're just showing you maybe the most important thing about it, the most structured thing about it. But when you see what's going on behind the scenes is very important. Okay, anyway, going back to this issue here. So for the Shafi'is, it's very, very easy to pray at these makruh times because we say the key word is intend, right? So that means intentional. In reality, you intended, like, I want to go and pray at this time. Okay. So I want to pray after Asr. Okay, I'm going to go into Tahiyat. I'm going to go and do Tahiyat Masjid specifically to pray at this time. You cannot do that. So if there is genuine tahari, genuine intent of praying in these times, it is haram. You can't do that and invalid. And then we say, well, that was not your intent, but what was your reason for praying at that time? So can I do nafil mutlaq after Asr? Can I just pray prayers after Asr? Can't do that. Okay, can I just pray prayers after Fajr or during the zenith? The answer is no. But if you have any reason to do it, it's fine. Right? Any reason to do it is totally fine. In that, for example, um, what was I going to say? In that, for example, you're doing qada, any qada of obligatory prayers or sunnah prayers that have fixed times. You have an event that precedes it, tahiyyat al-masjid, right? Wudu, sin, right? You made tawbah. Can you do salat tawbah after asr? Yeah, right. Um, I believe it's debated in reality. I think there's a debate on it. Is it like istikhara or not, right? Or as opposed to istikhara, can you do salat al-istikhara after asr? No, because the dua comes after it. Or the two rakats before entering ihram? No, because by choosing to enter into ihram after asr, your cause for the prayer did not come before it. You prayed and then entered ihram, and so that the cause comes before it, right? But otherwise, it's very difficult in the Shafi school to not be able to pray at this time. Oh, did you pray duha when you were 10? Say no. Okay, go and do it now. Because of that wording, the key wording, right? And then there's a whole other issue, which again is very important, and I'm not going to delve into it, which is the Shafi'is and the Malikis, we agree on a lot of usul, a lot of usul. So we both agree that an-nahi yaqtid al-fasad, that prohibition will lead to invalidity. Okay? And that applies to when that of the action, the essence of the action, theft itself is being prohibited, or a lazim of it, something that is stuck to it and is not inconceivably out of it. So, for example, the prayer time is inseparable from the prayer. The place of the prayer is inseparable from the prayer, right? Um, the um, what else? Like things. So the prayer time, you can't separate the prayer time. The day of fasting cannot be separated from the fast. The excess, for example, let's say, for example, in a loan, right? When you lend somebody money with the agreement they're going to pay back more, that excess, the increase of in the loan is not found in anything else. You can't find that extra thing in anything other than in a loan. So therefore, it is considered invalid. It's not just haram, but it's also an invalid loan. Right? Other scenarios like that. Um, so we both agree then that you cannot pray after Asr. But they say it's makruh and valid. And we say it's makruh and invalid, or haram and invalid. So we say it's makruh and therefore invalid and therefore haram, because you cannot do an act of worship that's invalid. Or we say it's haram because of the time and you can't separate the time from the prayer, so therefore the prayer is invalid, and it's haram and invalid. So we agree on usul, we disagree on a tatbiq of the usul, right? How we apply the usul. So sometimes there's obviously some fundamental usuli issues between the Malikis and the Shafis, and the other issues is not fundamental at all. But just in the tatbiq, when you actually apply it, totally different. اوكي. باب الصلاة في شدة الحر. أخبرنا مالك أخبرني عبد الله بن يزيد مولى الأسود بن سفيان عن أبي سلمة بن عبد الرحمن عن محمد بن عبد الرحمن بن ثوبان عن أبي هريرة أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إذا كان الحر فأبردوا عن الصلاة فإن فإن شدة الحر من فيح جهنم. وذكر أن النار اشتكت إلى ربها عز وجل فأذن لها في كل بنفسين، نفس في الشتاء ونفس في الصيف. So Malik informed us Yazid ibn Abdullah ibn Yazid, the Mawla of Al-Aswad ibn Sufyan, informed me from Abu Salama ibn Abdul Rahman and from Muhammad ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Thoban from Abu Huraira that the Messenger of Allah said, when the heat is great, then let it cool down before praying. or the intensity of the heat is from the vehement raging. From meaning like. Min can mean like. It is like. It is from it, like the heat of Jahannam. And he mentioned that the fire complained to its Lord, so he allowed it to have two breaths each year. A breath, it was too intense; it needed to kind of depressure itself. A breath in winter and a breath in summer. Right? So the coolness, the bitter coldness of the winter is of the breaths of hellfire, and the extreme heat is of the breaths of hellfire. قال محمد وبهذا نأخذ نبرد لصلاة الظهر في الصيف ونصلي في الشتاء حين تزول الشمس وهو قول أبي حنيفة. So this is a very important hadith. It says, Muhammad says, we adhere to this. We let it cool down. We let it cool down before dhuhr in the summer, but pray in the winter when the sun moves away from the zenith. That is the verdict of Abu Hanifa. May Allah show mercy upon him. Why is this important? Because allegedly, as we're going to see, where is it? We're going to see in a bit. Where is it? We're going to see this in a second, right? That you can join Dhuhr and Asr or Maghrib and Isha when it's raining. So what's the difference between rain and heat? And more importantly, when does the haram become halal? Right? So here, right, we know that obviously if there's duress, if you want an issue of a life and death, then the haram becomes halal. You don't have to go to the prayer, you don't have to do this, don't do that. But now you're going to Dhuhr, it's extremely difficult to go and pray Dhuhr in the middle of the day in Saudi Arabia. It's really, 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 really hot. It's a great inconvenience to go to the prayer at that time. Okay, people don't go out in that time of day. It's a time for having a siesta to stay home and sleep. You don't function at that time. It's too hot. So now, allegedly, we can join prayers for difficulty because the Prophet ﷺ joined, and in Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, and Ibn Abbas was asked the question, why did he do that? He says that he didn't want to do ihraj of people, didn't want to make things difficult for people. So presumably, whenever it's difficult, whatever difficult means, right, then you can just join prayers, right? But here's a problem. If you can't join prayers for the heat, which is extremely hot and extremely inconvenient, why can you join prayers for rain? And where's the line between what pushes, what doesn't pull, right? So we can say that there's a line on the top which is clearly duress, right? Issues of duress, you are under duress, life and death, that kind of thing. Obviously, the Sharia changes for that, right? And there's issues that are totally negligible, like, well, I like the color red, so therefore I can do whatever I want. I'm allowed to steal someone's things because I like the color red. Doesn't make any sense. Or I don't have to fast because I get hungry when I fast. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Of course you're going to get hungry if you fast. So the hunger that is caused by fasting does not alleviate the obligation, does not stop you from being obliged to fast. That wouldn't make any sense. That wouldn't make any sense. So how difficult does it have to get? So we see, for example, you can join prayers on a journey. You can join prayers apparently for rain. You can join prayers apparently for other reasons. But where's the line between negligible difficulty, extreme difficulty that that allows you to be excused from all sorts of things? Like, where do you join that line? So we notice in the Sharia there are certain things, right? There are certain things that are negligible, certain things that are mu'tabar, it's relevant. And there are certain things that are multahaqa بالضروريات, right? They are treated like that, like the fact that it's difficult, like breaking your fast on a journey. You could break your fast if you're going to die, that's for sure. So that's a darura, but you can also break your fast on a journey simply because it's difficult, right? Simply because it's difficult. And so now when I'm trying to find out when can I break my fast for sickness, how sick do I have to be? So now I'm going to try and find this line because I say, well, sick is sick. Like, what does sick mean? Like, there's levels of sick. How sick do I have to be? right? Similarly here, when you say a deen yusr, deen is ease. Really? If deen was yusr, you could join dhuhr with asr because of the heat in Saudi Arabia throughout the whole summer. But you can't. So when is it deen yusr? When is religion ease? When is it that ease comes in and changes things? It's not an easy discussion at all. Not an easy discussion at all. And so somebody who comes along and says, brother, make the deen easy, just change. Like you changing or tweaking or overlooking things takes a lot of research, right? And that's why, for example, in madhab fiqh, you're going to have ashbah wa nadha'ir. So this should be excused because it's like this, it's like this, it's like this. It's There are other scenarios where the fuqaha work in the same system and excuse, but they didn't. Okay, does that make sense, Muhammad?
Yes, Ustad.
All right, and this is somewhat analogous, or even it's not as analogous, but to the discussion with Salat al-Khawf, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes in the Quran, a whole page saying what you should do when you're in jihad. So you can't miss the prayer in Jama'ah when you're on jihad. So then why should I be able to miss the prayer why should I be able to miss the prayer if I'm not in jihad? And if I can't join in jihad, then why can't I join on a journey? It doesn't make sense. Because the journey is not as hard as jihad, right? So like doesn't how is that possible? So either we say you can't join on the journey, right? Or we have to kind of put it another way, right? Specifically, look at the Hanbali school. The Hanbali school says you can join. One of the reasons for joining is fear for life or death, for life or of life or limb. But yet, when there's fear for life or limb, you can do Salat al-Khawf. So what? There's two rukhsas that like, how does that even apply? Like your system is off. It's funny. It's weird, right? And so then when somebody comes along and says, yeah, brother, you can join for difficulty, and they just like join for convenience. There's a difference between convenience and difficulty. They're like, yeah, brother, don't be so detailed. The Sahaba, the more general, like, no, you have a genuine fiqh problem, right? Your tasawwur, the way you're looking at fiqh and the systems in your head are really not there, right? And so this is quite a tricky thing, right? And I might have shared with you before, Muhammad, was the scenario of I was trying to find out if employment insurance in the Netherlands, not in the Netherlands, in Scandinavia was legal, was halal, sorry. So insurance by default is halal. But there are certain scenarios, if you're forced, then it becomes halal. So, but like, is that a force? Like medical insurance in the United States, if you earned a lot of money, you're going to have to pay for your own, pay for your own medical insurance. If you have to pay for your own medical insurance, you're doing the haram by having insurance. That's a vague contract you can't do. Yeah, but I can't survive in North America without medical insurance. You can't do it because it would be way too expensive if you had to go and pay for an ambulance or something. That'd be way too expensive. It'd be ridiculous. So it's not duress. Not no one's gonna. It's not life or death, but it is considered close enough. And so I had to do that same research. I had to research into the economics, research into this, research into that, ask different muftis. I couldn't get the conclusion. Is it close enough to duress, or is it close enough to um uh or is it not? It's hard, right? It's a hard discussion as opposed to somebody who just said deen is easy, right? That doesn't make any sense. That's clear, Muhammad?
Yes, Ustad. So the Hanafis, they pray. I mean, does it still work now? Like, do they still pray Dhuhr later?
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
can
because I
delay it,
don't
but
see.
they can't change the prayer time, right? And
Oh,
that verse that they use to the use that the verse that they use to prove the idea that you can't join prayers, on top of the fatwa of Ibn Mas'ud that you can Abdullah Mas'ud that you can't do it, is that the verse Inna salata kanat lil mu'minina kitab mawquta. What comes just before it? What comes just before it is Salat al-Khawf. So had that rukhsa existed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would never have say, إن صلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتاب موقوتا. Allah would never have said, indeed the prayer is and ever will be at fixed appointed times. Right? That it wouldn't be the case. Right? Why is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about uh, um, breaking your fast on a journey, but did not talk about joining prayers on a journey? Even though joining prayers on a journey is way more practical than breaking your fast on a journey. We don't fast all the whole year round, but you do travel the whole year round, particularly if you're a Bedouin. You're always traveling. It's very useful to know, can I join prayers or not? Right? So the point is you have to have a system, and someone who kind of ignores things and doesn't look at things properly, they don't have a system. Okay, a man forgets the prayer or misses it on time. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا ابن شهاب عن سعيد المسيب مرسلا أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال حين قفل من خيبر أسرى حتى إذا كان من آخر الليل عرس وقال لبلال اكلأ لنا الصبح فنام رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وكلأ بلال ما قدر له ثم استند إلى راحلته وهو مقابل الفجر فغلبته عيناه فلم يستيقظ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا بلال ولا أحد من الركب حتى ضربتهم الشمس ففزع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال يا بلال فقال بلال يا رسول الله أخذ بنفس الذي أخذ بنفسك قال اقتادوا فبعث رواحلهم فاقتادوا شيئا مفهوم مطلق ثم أمر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بلالا فأقام صلاته فصلى بهم الصبح ثم قال حين قضى صلاته من نسي صلاة فليصليها إذا ذكرها فإن الله عز وجل يقول أقم الصلاة لذكري أي بسبب ذكري. So Malik informed us from Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri from Sa'id al-Musayyab with a gap in the chain here. And perhaps it's completed in other places. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam headed back from Khaybar, traveling at night until when it was towards the end of the night, he made camp and said to Bilal, "Keep watch for us, keep watch for the dawn for us." So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions slept, and Bilal kept watch as long as was decreed for him, and then leaned against his camel, facing in the direction of the dawn, and sleep overcame him. Neither the Messenger of Allah sallallahu nor Bilal nor anybody else of the company awoke until the sun struck them. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu started and said, Bilal. And the Prophet said, O Messenger of Allah, he who took your soul took my soul. Right? And the Prophet said, lead on, go ahead. Right? They roused their mounts and led them on somewhat. And then the Messenger of Allah sallallahu ordered Bilal to pronounce the Iqama. Then he prayed the dawn prayer. Then he said, in the Shafi school, we do the Adhan as well. Then he said, and when he had concluded the prayer, Prophet said, whoever forgets a prayer, then let him pray it when he remembers it. Right? Now, so this again is a proof for the Shafi'is. We say, إِذَا ذَكَرَهَا. Right? So it says, let him pray it when he remembers it. Well, that might be after Asr. That might be after Fajr. That might be after all sorts of times. Okay? And so the Shafi'is say, yeah, Qadha can be done at any time. Right? You can do it any time. Now, here's the question. Can we do qiyas? Can we do qiyas from forgetting to pray and sleeping through the prayer? Right? So here the two are the same. Forgetting and sleeping, they're the same. Can you do qiyas from the fact that you unintentionally missed the prayer to intentionally missing the prayer? Are they analogous? So there are certain scenarios in fiqh where they're analogous, sometimes they're not. So we say, for example, in the Shafi school, in salat, in sujud as-sahw, if you intentionally or unintentionally do something, the cause for sujood as-sahw is the same. Right? So, um, there's no difference, right? So it doesn't matter that you did it or not. But there's other times like, no, it doesn't count like that, right? Where you squander something, you ruin something by intentionally doing it. So here, Ibn Hazm, Al-Zahiri and others, they say there's no qada for somebody who intentionally misses the prayer, right? Either because you left Islam, according to a position, or B, because there's no analogy. Like, khalas, you missed it. You have forfeited it, right? By intentionally missing the prayer. The prayer comes in, you're not going to pray it, that's it. You forfeit it, khalas, it's over, right? Whereas the analogy that arguably qiyas awlawi, right? A fortiori analogy that most scholars use is, well, if you forgot to pray, if you forgot to pay zakat, or you forgot to go on Hajj, or you forgot to fast, surely you still have to make them up, right? But yeah, what's the difference? Right, what's the difference? There's no difference. Okay. وقال محمد وبهذا نأخذ إلا أن يذكرها في الساعة التي نهى الله عن الصلاة فيها حين تطلع الشمس حتى ترتفع وتبيض ونصف النهار حتى تزول وحين تحمر الشمس حتى تغيب إلا عصر يومه فإنه يصليها وإن احمرت الشمس قبل أن تغرب وهو قول أبو حنيفة. So according to the Hanafis, no, you can't do that. You can't pray at these forbidden times. So establish a prayer whenever you remember, because you remember me. So when you remember me and you say, whoops, I didn't pray, then pray it. And the Hanafis say, except to those times, right? So which is doing, which is doing takhsis of which? Does it say, when you miss a prayer, pray it when you remember it, even at the makruh times? Or is it, don't pray at the makruh times unless it's a qada, because he said this. Which is doing qiyas of which, right? And that's a difficult question to answer. So Imam Muhammad, he says, we adhere to this, except in the case when he remembers in the time in which the Messenger of Allah prohibited prayer, when the sun appears until it ascends and whitens, or in the middle of the day until the moon moves away from its zenith, or when the sun reddens until it disappears, unless it be the prayer of Asr of that same day, in which case he should pray it before the sun sets, even though it has reddened. Of course, right? So Asr is in. You haven't prayed Asr yet, and it's getting late. You have to pray Asr. So you might be sinful for delaying it to that time, right? That's another discussion. Are you sinful or not, right? But the other issue is, but you still have to pray it. It's still ada, still on time. أخبرنا مالك أخبرني زيد بن أسلم عن عطاء بن يسار وعن بسر بن سعيد عن الأعرج يحدثونه عن أبي هريرة أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من أدرك من الصبح ركعة قبل أن تطلع الشمس فقد أدركها ومن أدركها من عصر قبل أن تغرب الشمس فقد أدركها. So Malik informed us from Zayd ibn Aslam, who informed us from Ata ibn Yasar, and from Busr ibn Sa'id, from Araj, all reporting from Abu Hurairah that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, whoever catches one rak'ah of dawn prayer before the sunrise appears has caught it, meaning it's on time. Whoever catches one of Asr before the sun sets has caught it. So that implies that what? Still Asr time. Still Asr time. Right? So is it makruh, unbelievably makruh or haram to pray at that time? That's another discussion. It's still time though. Right? So that you're still ada. So it's worth noting that in the Hanbali school, the relied upon position, right? And this is also, I believe, a position in the Shafi school as well, maybe the position of Istakhriya, I believe, is that delaying Asr is late is actually haram, right? It's not just makruh, right? So that's what you should pray. So in the Hanafi school, you should pray before the makruh time. The makruh time starts with the Hanafi time, right? So you should pray the Asr before the Hanafi time, right? And then repeat with the Jama'ah, for example. Right? Are you in a Hanafi place right now or Shafi place, Muhammad?
Um, I'm in a Hanafi.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's what I'd advise you to do that. Look at the very beginning of Asr for the Hanafi time and pray just before that. Because
Yeah. Okay.
you know, if
I
you
mean, I did.
if you're
Yeah.
gonna go to the masjid, repeat it. If you're not gonna go to the masjid, khalas, just you know.
Okay.
So that's what I try and do here where I'm in Brentwood. That we pray Asr the Hanafi time. I try and pray Dhuhr. I usually like have a nap after Dhuhr. So I would try and wake up just before Asr for the Hanafi time. Because that's going to be the last time that it's not actually sinful in the Hanafi school, Hanbali school. Okay, باب الصلاة في الليلة الممطرة وفضل الجماعة. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا نافع عن ابن عمر أنه نادى بالصلاة في سفر في ليلة ذات برد وريح ثم قال ألا صلوا في الرحال ثم قال إن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يأمر المؤذن إذا كانت ليلة ما باردة إذا كان إذا كانت الليلة ليلة باردة ذات مطر يقول ألا صلوا في الرحال. Right. إذا كانت هي ليلة باردة ذات مطر or إذا كانت ليلة باردة ذات مطر. Right. One means إذا كانت إذا وجدت. Right. If 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 a cold rainy night exists, he used to say the following. Okay. Um but if what was it? But otherwise it could be إذا كانت هي when the night was ليلة باردة ذات مطر يقول ألا صلوا في الرحال. So Malik informed us from Nafi informed us from that he called the adhan for the prayer on a journey on a cold and windy night and then said do the prayer in your dwellings, in your tents, etc. And then he said the Messenger of Allah sallallahu would, when it was a cold and rainy night, order the mu'adhin to say, do the prayer in your dwellings. So this is again a problem. We're going to see in a second that apparently you can join prayers for rain. So what does that mean? So when it's rainy, you don't have to come to the masjid. But when it's rainy, you can join. So which rukhsa is there? Right? Which rukhsa is what's going on? قال محمد هذا حسن وهذا رخصة والصلاة في الجماعة أفضل. Right? So he said just a rukhsa, right? So it's not really a problem for the Hanafi because the Hanafi doesn't say that you can join prayers for rain. But for the person who can join prayer for rain, it's like, what does that even mean? Right? So we're going to allow you to join the prayer so that you come to the masjid, but you don't even have to come to the masjid. So why would there be a rukhsa? Right? And so all of these things have to be on our head before we join a prayer. Like, I know I can join prayers, but I'm aware of the huge problem with it, and that this is not necessarily the case. So, I'm going to try and repeat if I pray Dhuhr Asr in the early time, I'm going to try and repeat my Asr in the Asr time if I get a chance. And B, I'm not going to do it just because I can. I'm going to do it because I should. I'm doing this to make it easy for my kids, easy for my wife, easy for the people I'm traveling with, babies throwing up, as opposed to, yeah, let's just join prayers because you can. That's not a clever thing to do because you don't even know you can join prayers. And you might think, right? And we see this with some people who are like, yeah, we just read hadith and follow hadith, right? Kind of Ahl hadith people. You can see sometimes they're very calm. It's kind of like an overconfidence, right? In reality, it's ignorance. You're overconfident because you know what's going on. You don't realize there's a problem here. Whereas the Shafi'is say you can, but you shouldn't. Right? Hanbali's 9 reasons to join, but you shouldn't because we're not actually sure if we're right or not. That humility is very important. Okay. أخبرنا مالك حدثنا أبو النضر عن بسر بن سعيد عن زيد بن ثابت قال إن فضل صلاتكم في بيوتكم إن أفضل صلاتكم في بيوتكم إلا صلاة الجماعة. Right? إن أفضل صلاتكم في بيوتكم إلا صلاة الجماعة. So praying should always be done at home, private, between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the exception of the group prayer, which should be prayed public. قال محمد بهذا نأخذ وكل حسن. We adhere to this, and either way is good. أخبرنا مالك حدثنا نافع عن ابن عمر قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فضل صلاة الجماعة على صلاة الرجل وحده ب27 درجة. Malik informed us that Nafi' said that Ibn Umar said that he said the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said the superiority of the prayer and congregation over that of a man who prays by himself is 27 degrees. Right? It's like praying 27 times. Now, what does it mean then? This is a proof for the Jumhur that praying the group prayer is not obligatory. Because it says the merit of one over the other. That means they're both meritorious. They're both good. Right? You don't say, for example, zina, the benefit of marriage over zina is this many times. That doesn't, because one's haram, one's halal. You don't really make that comparison. Right? So, babu qasr as-salati fi safar. So shortening is something that we agree on, right? أخبرنا مالك أخبرني صالح بن كيسان عن عروة بن الزبير عن عائشة رضي الله عنها أنها قالت فرضت الصلاة ركعتين ركعتين في السفر والحضر فزيد في صلاة الحضر وأقرت صلاة السفر. So with this chain transmission from Aisha, the great faqihah, she said the prayer was originally made obligatory. It was 2 rak'ahs. Every prayer was 2 rak'ahs, whether traveling or resident. Then the prayer of residence was increased, was added to, and the prayer of traveling was confirmed as it was. So now the question is, how far is journey? أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا نافع أن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما كان إذا خرج إلى خيبر قصر الصلاة. So Malik informed us that when Ibn Umar went out to Khaybar, he would shorten the prayer. أخبرنا مالك حدثنا نافع عن عبد الله بن عمر كان إذا خرج حاجا أو معتمرا قصر الصلاة في ذي الحليفة. أخبرنا مالك أخبرني ابن شهاب الزهري عن سالم بن عبد الله أن ابن عمر خرج إلى ريم فقصر صلاة في مسيره ذلك. أخبرنا مالك حدثنا نافع أنه كان يسافر مع ابن عمر البريدة فلا يقصر الصلاة. Right, he'd go, so he said he would go approximately a barid, which is approximately 12 miles, and he would not shorten the prayer. So you don't become a traveler by merely leaving. You have to be going somewhere that is far. قال محمد إذا خرج المسافر أتم الصلاة إلا أن يريد مسيرة 3 أيام كواملة بسير الإبل ومشي الأقدام. Right? So he says 3. So what is definition of the journey is 3 days, 3 complete days of the traveling of a camel or walking. Right? So 3 miles an hour. Let's say you walk for 8 hours a day. So 3 times 3 times 8, which is what? 72. Right? That kind of distance, right? We say the Shafis usually say 50 miles, but approximately. So notice again, we don't actually know. This is part of the morality. We don't know what the traveling distance is. So we should be careful, and we should be careful with prayer. فإذا أراد ذلك قصر حين خرج من مصره ويجعل البيت خلف ظهره وقول أبي حنيفة رحمه الله. Muhammad said when the traveler goes out, he should pray the complete prayer unless he intends a journey of 3 whole days, traveling at a camel's pace or walking pace. If he intends that, he should shorten the prayer when he goes out of the city and leaves the houses behind his back, right? But even if he hasn't covered that distance yet, that is the verdict of Imam Hanifa. Is this actually the case? Question mark. Because what I remember from the Maliki and Hanafi school is that you can only shorten once you actually travel the distance, not that you're just on that direction. Allahu a'lam. باب المسافر يدخل مصر أو غيره متى يتم الصلاة. When a traveler enters a city or somewhere else should he complete the prayer? أخبرنا مالك حدثنا ابن شهاب عن سالم بن عبد الله عن ابن عمر أنه قال أصلي صلاة المسافر ما لم أجمع مكثا أجمع decided to مكثا وإن حبسني ذلك 12 ليلة. So Malik informed us that Ibn Shihab narrated from to him from Salim ibn Abdullah from Ibn Umar that he said, I pray the prayer the traveler prays as long as I have not decided to advance upon a stay, even though it should detain me for more than 12 nights. So the Shafi'is, we say, four complete nights. And so 12 nights, I believe, is 14 days, which is the Hanafi thing. أخبرنا مالك حدثنا زهري عن سالم بن عبد الله عن أبيه أن عمر كان إذا قدم مكة صلى بهم ركعتين ثم قال يا أهل مكة أتموا صلاتكم فإنا قوم سفر. Um, so Malik informed us from Zuhri, from Salim ibn Abdullah, from his father, that Umar, when Umar came to Mecca, he would pray 2 rak'ahs with them, i.e. on Hajj. Right? So he's on Hajj because they're only there for a short time. And then say, people of Mecca, complete your prayer, for indeed we are people on a journey. أخبرنا مالك أخبرني نافع أن ابن عمر أنه كان يقيم بمكة 10 فيقصر الصلاة إلا أن يشهد الصلاة مع الناس فيصلي بصلاتهم. So Malik informed us that Nafi informed us that Ibn Umar would reside in Mecca for 10 days. He's considered a traveler the whole time and would shorten the prayer unless he attended the prayer with people, with others, you say, when he would pray the full amount. So if you pray if you're praying if you're praying any part of the prayer behind the Imam and he's praying the full amount, you have to pray the full amount. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا هشام بن عروة أنه سأل سالم بن عبد الله عن المسافر إذا كان لا يدري متى يخرج يقول أخرج اليوم أو أخرج غدا بل الساعة كذا فكان كذلك حتى يأتي عليه ليال كثيرة أيقصر أم ما يصنع قال يقصر وإن تماد بذلك شهرا. So Malik informed us from Hisham ibn Urwa, informed us that he asked Salim ibn Abdullah about a traveler who does not know when he's going to leave. So how long are you going to be in the city anyway? He said, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. And so on until many nights pass him by. Should he shorten or what does he do? He says he shortens until he stays there for a month. Who says, قال محمد نرى قصر الصلاة إذا دخل المسافر مصرا من الأمصار وإن عزم على المقام إلا أن يعزم على المقام 15 يوما فصاعدا فإذا عزم على ذلك أتم صلاة. We are of the opinion that a person prayer should be shortened once the traveler enters a city, even if he's resolved to stay, unless he resolves to stay for 15 or more days, like the 14 days. So 15 or more. If he doesn't, 14 days is still traveling. Once he's resolved upon that, he should complete the prayer. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا عطاء الخراساني قال سعيد المسيب من نوى على إقامة 4 أيام فليتم صلاته. Right? Malik informed us that Ata al-Khurasani said that Sa'id al-Musayyab, so the Mufti, the greatest faqih of Medina, said, whoever decides in advance upon a day of to stay for 4 days, let him complete the prayer. So this is the Umdah of the Shafis, part of the Umdah of the Shafis, not really the Umdah, but see how Madani the Shafis are. We say 4 days. قال محمد لسنا نأخذ بهذا يقصر مسافر حتى يجمع على إقامة 15 يوما وهو قول ابن عمر وسعيد بن جبير وسعيد بن مسيب. right? So here he's saying this is the position of Sa'id al-Musayyib. But Sa'id al-Musayyib just said the opposite, right? Allahu a'lam. أخبرنا مالك أخبر نافع عن ابن عمر أنه كان يصلي مع الإمام أربعا وإذا صلى لنفسه صلى ركعتين. قال محمد بهذا so he says Malik informed us from Nafi' that Ibn Umar used to pray 4 rak'ahs with the Imam. When he prayed by himself, he prayed 2. Muhammad said, وبهذا نأخذ إذا كان الإمام مقيما والرجل مسافرا وهو قول أبا حنيفة. He says, yes, if you are a traveler but the Imam is not a traveler, then that's what you do. Inshallah, we'll stop here. Now we'll come to this whole discussion, inshallah ta'ala, next week. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.